Hello out there, Archers. Welcome to season 2, episode 2 of the Three Archers podcast. We are talking about mental health today. I don't know if any of you out there have any mental health struggles currently. I mean, with the state of the world being what it is, a lot of people do, and there is no shame in that. Or if you just know someone who may have or is dealing with a mental health struggle. But I think it's really important that we talk about this and we bring it to the forefront because there are so many things that we kind of ignore or minimize that are serious issues. So, Sister Letitia, what is your experience with mental health?
I mean, I struggle with mental health issues. Anyway, depression is definitely a monster that I've battled the better part of my 30, going to be 38 years. Anxiety is something that I battle with daily. So it's definitely no shame in it. I mean, I seem well adjusted sometimes, depends on when you catch me. Because when my sister was telling y'all last week, I knew it was me. It was me. It was me because my anxiety was like through the roof. And I get evil when my anxiety is going through the roof. There's so many things that people do when anxiety is driving, and they don't realize it's anxiety for them to even convey to you, hey, you're triggering me. A lot of times when you come across really mean people, it's not that they're mean. They have anxiety issues and they haven't been diagnosed, so they don't know how to cope. So they're extremely irritable. Guilty. I am very guilty. I just know when to remove myself.
So true. Like I saw I'm going to try to find it and post it to our webpage. So follow us on IG and basically all social media platforms. But I saw this post and it said anxiety looks like. And it was like, it looks like happy and sad and joy and it looks like introvert and extrovert. And there's no one way to display anxiety symptoms. I feel like it's one of the most underdiagnosed conditions out there. A lot of people are suffering with anxiety. So, fun fact, I have 2 daughters. Again, the youngest one asked me a lot of baby questions the other day. Told her leave me alone. But one of the questions was, was I okay after she was born? Did I have, she didn't use the term, but postpartum depression. So Stephanie, as the newest mother, again, amongst us, what are your thoughts on that? Postpartum.
I have postpartum depression. I am dealing with that right now. And I've had it with 3 out of my 4, with 3 out of my 4 children. Yes, my oldest daughter I did not, but everybody else I did. With my second child, back then nobody really talked about it like that. She's how old? Shiloh is 10 now, so things change in a little bit of time. So that seems like so long ago, but it really wasn't. But like when you talk about medical advancements and stuff like that, that is a long time ago. And when she was born, it's like you heard about it, but not really, and wasn't nobody really talking about it. Nobody really wanted to talk about it. Now with Shy, which was he's almost 3, so almost 3 years ago, it was of course more prevalent, more people talking about it. And yeah, it's real. This time around, I think the other 2 times I didn't really want to accept that that's what was going on with me. This time I'm kind of like, okay, yeah, this is, it is what it is. That coupled with, I struggle with depression anyway and anxiety, big time. So all of those things mixed together is a doozy. And I really do think that postpartum depression, because that's, what you asked me about. I think people need to be more educated on it. Partners, especially men, they'll never really get it because they can never really get it. They'll never experience, they cannot be pregnant. They cannot birth children. They cannot, they don't have to experience those hormone fluctuations, all of that stuff. So they just don't get it. I do hope that men get more, that more men get more involved in that piece, and that they take the time to research that stuff more and read up on things. And we got small phones. Anything you want to know, you can find out. You know what I'm saying? I just wish it was more important to other people than a woman that had a baby. It's tough when you have a baby. Everybody expects you to be, oh my goodness, you brought this new life into the world, and all of that stuff. And it's a joy. You love your child. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, it's everything else that comes along with it, especially if you had a traumatic pregnancy, which I did, a traumatic birth, which I did, in recovery, and the baby that was in a NICU, and a traumatic thing that happened when he was in the NICU, where he had, an emergency, like all of that stuff. And even though when it's over, it's still not really over, it's still here. So it's something that I deal with a lot, along with the fact that I have other children, a child in every stage of life. I have a child that's about to graduate high school. I have a child that's in elementary school. I have a toddler, and I have an infant, a breastfeeding infant, as you can see. Like, my nerves are all over the place. That, coupled with anxiety, you see how I kept losing my camera, because I'm just all over the place. Mental health is real, but I do think one of the biggest things with it is you got to recognize that it's an issue for you.
Mm-hmm. So quick question. With you saying you got to recognize it. We're all intelligent. We like you said, all of the knowledge you want in the world is at your fingertips. We have smartphones and internet and all that good stuff. Mm-hmm. In all these cases, were you the one that kind of noticed it and brought it, like, hey, this is what I'm dealing with? Or was it your medical provider who kind of said, you may be dealing with?
Well, the depression piece, I don't think I really acknowledged it until I saw a medical professional, and they confirmed it for me. So I knew, okay, this is, this is what's going on. Now with the postpartum piece, with Shiloh, I thought that maybe that might have been what was going on, but my mother actually pointed it out to me, like, I think you are dealing with postpartum depression. And, that's when it's, really, really clicked, like, yeah, I think I am too, But to answer your question, like, my depression without being pregnant, it was a medical professional. And, after having a baby, it was just something that I just knew because I know the signs and, all that good stuff.
So in your case, it was you being aware, it was your support team being aware, it was your medical professional being aware. And so I think, well, one of the reasons that I want to talk about mental health is I feel like we need to normalize it. First of all, like, mental health is health. Mm-hmm. Just like your heart health, just like your, just like anything else, mental health is a thing. And it shouldn't always be that something breaks down, something goes terribly wrong, for us to acknowledge and kind of work on it and work through it. So, Letitia, what do you think, what do you think is the most important piece in getting people to kind of normalize mental health being a part of their overall health and wellness and self-care and all these things?
I think it's part of what Stephanie said about recognizing and your support team, your people around you recognizing, acknowledging, and not shaming you for it. Because so many times people don't acknowledge their mental health issues because there's such a stigma. You know, your family, your friends, in the Black community is a huge stigma. So when you're dealing with those situations, I distinctly remember going through postpartum with my second, and my grandmother said to me, "We don't have time to be depressed."
Wow.
And she right, we don't have time to be depressed. However, it's the thing. We're depressed. Yes, the children are running around and we got stuff to do, but you have to take care of yourself. And people, especially women, or people, let me not X men out of the conversation, because I think they are actually the bigger piece of this, because so many of our men have mental health issues. And I've said time and time again, men, especially Black men, are not allowed to be human. They're not allowed to feel, they're not allowed to express feelings of negativity or hurt or love freely. So it is stuck down, and we know what happens when you don't address these issues. It implodes and there's a ton of collateral damage. So we have to stop being the people that say, "Oh, you're gonna be okay." And I also hate to hear people say, "Just pray about it." Listen to me. I love God, but I also know that God did not create us in such a way that we didn't feel. And all of these professionals are these professionals because God gifted these talents to man to manage them being these imperfect beings. So go see a psychologist, go talk to a therapist, go see a psychiatrist. There's nothing wrong with medicating if that's what you need to get through your day, because you are human. We're human. There are all kinds of things that we can manage on our own, and mental health sometimes is, most times, is not one of them.
So that right there, sister. Wait, first of all, you over here preaching, okay? Come on through, Pastor Letitia. But what you said right there, mental health is one of those things that for most people, you can't manage yourself.
Because you're fighting with yourself. How do you win a battle with somebody who knows you in and out? You cannot. It is okay to medicate. Listen, I don't like to take meds for any reason, and I have negated medication for my depression and my anxiety because I started running. I slimmed down after my divorce, and it wasn't for, oh, I just want to look good. It's because I realized me hitting 4 and 5 miles a day did a whole lot for my mental health. I stopped running when COVID came about. And I've been saying, look, I need some couch time. I need to find a new therapist. My therapist passed away. Listen, I've been in grief for a minute. Because when you do take care of your mental health and you lose your therapist, that's like losing a nucleus part of your family. Like, so now I'm out here looking for a therapist, but I recognize I got to work a little harder to manage my triggers. And when you know what your triggers are, you can manage a little better. But when you slip down a rabbit hole, and you are swallowed up by darkness and you are consumed, that is not a battle to fight alone. You need people around you that recognize that you are drowning. You need people to support you and throw you a life preserver.
Mhm.
And you need to know, I need to get help, because it is no shame in saying I need help.
Right. I think another important piece is, like you said, the people around you supporting you. I think it just baffles me that if you have an addiction problem, and first of all, a lot of addiction problems come from mental illness, whether there's somebody that's running from an actual mental illness like bipolar disorder or depression or whatever have you, or if they're just running from a trauma, because not all mental illness is permanent.
Mm-hmm.
It can come and go. You
Yeah.
can have stages where you are in a depression, but not be a depressed person.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people turn to substances, addictions of all kinds,
Mhm.
to help them through that. And so, if you display symptoms of addiction, there are all kinds of programs. There are people who will support you. There are so many things out here to treat just the addiction, and
Mm-hmm.
not as much to treat the underlying source, which, for the most part, is mental illness in some form. I think um, a lot of attention is given to people who are dealing with easy to spot mental illness. If you are a soldier and you go to war and you come back and a
PTSD.
doctor diagnoses you, which is not an easy thing. A diagnosis of any kind is not like an immediate or automatic thing. And for a lot of things, you need the diagnosis to even get help. Like if you haven't had somebody say, yes, I agree, or yes, I think, then you're just out here. But it's easier to get a diagnosis of, say, PTSD,
Mhm.
but just living life for some people.
A lot of people, most people had PTSD. And if you're living in Baltimore, you probably had PTSD.
PTSD.
And the flip side of what you just said, Anika, is you also have to go into therapy sometimes to get the diagnosis, because you have these surface things. Like if you're schizophrenic, that presents. If you're manic, that presents. But sometimes you have to go to therapy and dig in your trauma to find out what else is going on with you. Like it's not just, oh, we're just going to treat them for XYZ. And a lot of times that's what happens. People get treated for the surface issue, and then you're not treating for the underlying, the onset, so to speak.
Mhm.
Mhm.
It's true. And just like you said, we live in Baltimore. We live in Baltimore and the surrounding areas, and we are, did we surpass, it is November, early November as we're filming. I think we may have hit 300 or very close to it.
I
And
have not.
usually we get about, 20 to 30 throughout December. It's, yeah. And so just living, we become so desensitized to the traumas that we live through on a daily basis, just trying to get through life. And not just desensitized to the traumas, but desensitized to the symptoms, the signs and symptoms of mental illness. Like, how many people have a friend who's just crazy, always doing something like wild, and we just be like, oh girl, she crazy. Or a dude that has, outbursts, and we say, well, he just like that, or he just has an anger problem, not understanding that it's deeper than that until there's a tragedy.
Yep.
And so I don't want to see on the news that there was a murder suicide. I don't want to see that a mother and child were gunned down by the father. I don't want to see that two children were found dead, killed by one of their very close relatives, mother, aunt, father, sister. usually it doesn't start there.
Nope, it don't.
That's,
It's a build up.
so how do we get this? How do we really, like, again, solutions? What can we say to our village, our community, to really help them understand, hey, it's okay to feel a certain way. And if you're feeling a certain way, it's okay to talk to somebody.
Well, people need to stop shaming people. Period. For a long time, like the whole depression piece, like I lived a lot of my life just pretending to be happy. If anybody knows me, they'll tell you I'm the most happiest, jovial, playful, sunny side up person that you know. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of that is because I am, I like fun, I like being happy, I like all of that stuff. But for a long time, I didn't allow myself to be seen in any other way. Okay. I would not allow it, no matter what I was feeling on the inside. And a lot of that came from trauma. Anybody who has experienced trauma, especially childhood traumas, knows that you kind of make yourself forget about it and you mask it with either you be a very happy kid or you go the opposite end and get very rebellious. So I went through the very, very happy, very perfect child. And then I went off into the very, very rebellious teenager. So I went through, both sides. But when I finally came out and started speaking about suffering from depression and anxiety, people looked at me like, what? How? And that too. If somebody tell you that they suffer from some type of mental illness, you don't say, but why? You got this. You got that. You got family. So what? How many famous people have you seen that have ended their own lives dealing with mental issues? People have millions and millions and millions of dollars. Anything they want is at their fingertips. That does not stop things from going, a little haywire upstairs. It just does not. So I say all that to say, if somebody opens up to you and expresses that they're struggling with something, don't question them about it. Show them support. Don't make them feel like it's something wrong with them, for feeling that way or, for needing some type of help. And if somebody needs help, if somebody reaches out to you for help, it's because they need it. Period. Don't make anybody feel less than because they need help mentally. Because then you have those cases, or when you see it, say something. Say something. How many times have you seen stuff on TV when something happens, somebody kills their child, and then everybody coming out on the woodworks on Facebook? Oh yeah, because I saw her do XYZ. Oh yeah, because I seen her do this and that. Oh,
something didn't seem right.
Oh, but you want to say something now. Mm-hmm. Now, when it's nothing you can do about it. Like, I don't like that. I don't like that. Everybody want to mind their business about things that they shouldn't be minding their business about, but the things that they should be minding their business about, they don't.
Facts.
If you see a woman with children, prime example, the young lady who just killed herself not too long ago. And the crazy part about it was people shaming this woman who was deceased. She killed herself. Postpartum, I think it was she was dealing with some postpartum, but her children were not very young, and people don't understand that either. Postpartum depression sometimes it can last up to 6 years, I think.
Something like that.
I believe she was dealing with postpartum depression, and she was saying a lot of stuff on Facebook, leaving posts and statuses, basically crying out for help. She was struggling. Okay. She committed suicide. And I was just flabbergasted at some of the comments I saw. People are so heartless.
Yes.
They are.
Nobody care what you would or you would not do. We ain't talking about you. We ain't talking about you. Even in the when the woman killed her 2 children. People, my kids get on my nerves, but nobody asked you what you would never do, ma'am. That's not what we talking about. That's not what we talking about. And let's be real. A woman who gives birth to her children and then kills them, she's not normal. Something is wrong with her mental state. No one does that in a normal state of mind. Something's not right there. But again, people just all of their opinions. That's the problem. That is the problem with a lot of things in this world. Everyone has an opinion.
And
people voice their opinions without thinking how they will affect the person that they have the opinion about. We need to be more conscious about how we speak to, on, and about others. That is a solution, I say, because when you really think about it and when you really crack every issue that we have in this world, almost everyone, it comes to how we treat each other. Mm-hmm. And what we say, how we speak about each other, and the things that we pour into, the things we pour into each other, the negativity we put. If it should, in a perfect world, people should be able to have issues, state that they have issues, and get help for those issues. We should not have to feel like we have to hide them, like we have to mask them, like we have to pretend to be somebody that we're not to make other people happy, but we aren't happy ourselves. Child, I'd have went off on a manic tangent. But y'all get where I'm coming from.
Ma'am. No, ma'am.
So many
all your words.
points.
On point. All of your words.
The big thing that you said, though, Stephanie, about people recognizing that stuff doesn't matter, they have to first understand that depression is a chemical imbalance. There are other elements that trigger it, but for the most part, it's a chemical imbalance. So you're either dealing with a traumatic event or a chemical imbalance, or both of them. And how do you know what I'm saying? And how do you manage when it's a whole chemical imbalance and then somebody came and traumatized your life? So you're making these judgments because you feel like depression is something somebody can control. And it's not. Like most of our emotions, they're not regulated. We have fear, we love, because how many of us have loved people we didn't want to love? We knew it wasn't good. We said to ourselves, this is not going well. And we love them anyway. Like there's nothing about that you can regulate. So why do you think depression is something that you can control?
Who wants to be depressed?
Who wants to be depressed? Who wants to be suicidal?
That shit sucks.
Because so I'm gonna get real personal real quick. I'm gonna sum this story up. So a couple of years ago, you guys know I'm divorced. A couple of years ago, as my marriage was falling apart and it was really, really just down to the days before we physically parted, I had started uncovering my childhood trauma, my sexual trauma. And I was raped when I was 16. And I had suppressed that event to the point where I could tell you I was raped, but I couldn't recall the event at all. I went into therapy and I started being able to recall the event, and it sent me into like mild psychosis, moderate psychosis, actually. One night, I ended up at what is it? What's the Dagon Hospital in Northern Parkway, y'all? Brain fog. Yes. Anyway, I ended up at the hospital. My husband called the police on me because he had to block my vehicle in to keep me from getting away from him because I had swallowed 200 pills. So he had boxed me in, but he couldn't get me out of the car. When the police arrived, I was clearly not in a good mental space. The officer told me that I needed to get out the car and willfully go with the paramedics, or they would cuff me and make me go. And as they were putting me in the ambulance, one of the officers said, "So do you want to charge her with suicide?" I normally would not have shared that, but it definitely touched on you saying how heartless people can be. You see that I'm in pain. I had tears streaming. I just wanted to be left alone. I swallowed 200 pills, a mother of 5. And your thought was to charge me with suicide, attempted suicide. What kind of world do we live in? When you become so far removed from being a human, that's a thought. We gotta do, like, part of the issue is that people are just crappy. The bigger part of the issue is that people are crappy, and you're okay being that. You're okay being crap people. Like, we really have to change the culture. When did it become a good thing not being empathetic, not having a heart for people, not seeing someone go through something and make a point to kick them while they're down, while they're suffering? People really be out here struggling to hang on to their life, and you kicking. It's horrible.
It is.
I wanna say, first of all, we're here to share, and we've been very transparent about a lot of things that have happened. But I want to make a point of saying thank you, sister, for feeling, for being open enough to share that, because you don't have to. You don't have to. It doesn't belong to anyone. It's your story, and you don't have to tell it if you don't want to. So I pulled a lot of things from that, and oh my gosh, there's so many things that's wrong with that situation. These officers who were caught reasonably, with good reason, but you would expect them to be more empathetic, to know how to deal with someone who's in crisis. Mental health first response is something that is supposed to be a part of their training. And I say that from the perspective of actually being a state first aid mental health responder. I'm not a social worker. I'm not a psychiatrist. I am a mental health first responder, basically because I used to be a correctional officer. And so we would get a lot of inmates who were charged with crimes, but really were just having mental health issues. You understand what I mean? Like, and instead of getting them the help that they needed, they dropped them off in jail. Well, you left. Yeah. So now I'm responsible for managing the trauma of this situation and whatever mental trauma he's dealing with. Not a good situation, but you expect more from the people that respond. And also just the fact of, you said, when did people become so crappy? And I think it's been happening a long time, but I think what really, really just like made it explode really is social media.
Oh,
yeah.
Because people have, it's like this veil. Like, I can be horrible and I control you and I can send you threats and I can, do all of these things that are horrible, but I'm over here and you over there. Like there's nothing you can do.
Can't do nothing about it. You can't come bang me in my mouth about it.
Right. And I used to, so when I worked in the jail, I used to tell, guys, sometimes you hiding behind my badge. You're hiding behind the fact that I have a job description and there are policies and procedures and things that I'm supposed to follow. But if we were on the street, you would never stand in my face and talk to me like this because you would get punched in your mouth. Rightfully so. And to be fair, there were officers that would talk to it, like, you're not supposed to be doing that. Because if y'all was on the street, you would get punched in your mouth. Rightfully so. And so we use some of these situations as cover to be a crappy human being, to be unnecessarily mean and harsh and, just, I don't take any pleasure. I don't understand how people take pleasure in inflicting harm. So one of my favorite sheroes, shout out to Miss Jennifer Lewis, who wrote a amazing book if you haven't read it, but she often talks about leading with love. You don't have to know what's going on with that person. You don't have to know what their situation is going to be. But if you make decisions about how you are going to speak, how you are going to act, how you are going to move, how you are going to interact with this person based on, let me basically lead with love. Let me be empathetic. Let me move positively because they are having a human experience. Just like you. Just like you. And a lot of times those people who respond most harshly are those people who have the same type of hurts.
No.
But that person is struggling just like you.
Sheesh.
That part.
Yeah.
One of my favorite words, yikes.
Not yikes.
Hurt people hurt people.
Hurt people hurt
people.
It
sounds so cliche, but it's the truth. Hurt people hurt people.
So, I don't want to hurt nobody. I don't want nobody to hurt me. I had the time and energy to be, going out of my way to, I don't like, if you know me, anybody who knows me know, I don't really like social media. I'm not into it. It's a necessary evil at this point. Like, it's very difficult to navigate life without the use of social media and the internet. But if I could get away with not doing it, I would. Because I'm not interested in all of that. Life is hard enough without piling it on my back. And so we talked about trauma and PTSD. Just by nature of keeping abreast of the news, I think we all have PTSD because it's very triggering.
I don't like watching it.
I haven't watched the news in maybe, we've been up under COVID, 18 months? I stopped watching.
Is it more? Like, okay.
It's probably more. I haven't watched the news in maybe 25, 26 months. I stopped. It's too much for me. I never used to think I was an empath, and I'm finding that I am. It's too much, especially when you start talking about babies. Listen, I will cut you over my children, your kids, the girl across town that I have no inclination who she is. I don't play about babies. And when I say babies, y'all have to understand, if this child is not responsible for themselves,
that's a baby.
It's a baby to me.
It's a baby.
People say, they 16, it's a damn baby. Play with me if you want to. Play with me if you want to. They are children. And for the most part, while teenagers are able to defend themselves a little bit, they still don't have the skills needed to navigate this world appropriately. That's a baby. Play with that child if you want to. See how it ends for you. I dare you. I don't play about children at all. So to keep me from losing my mind, I stay away from the news. I have to. Because it's not okay.
It's like,
and people aren't okay. COVID has made it worse because Solitude is not meant for humans. We're not supposed to be in solitude. It makes you crazy. The Bible talks about this. Solitude is the cousin of insanity. Drive you right crazy. Mm-mm.
And it seems like it is driving people crazy, because I've never in my life seen a time where more women and children have been killed.
Mm-hmm.
Suicides are up.
Like, what do, like, women being murdered in the streets? I have never in my life seen it happen this often.
Women murdering, that's not crime of passions. Because usually when women snap, it's a crime of passion. These women are.
So also suicides are up. I've had this is how I know how bad it is. So I won't say the area that it happened in, because I don't have enough details to, qualify this statement, but I know this to be true. Someone killed themselves. They committed suicide. They jumped off a structure. I looked for it in the news and couldn't find it. And when I say I looked for it, I checked every news outlet, local, state, CNN. I couldn't find any mention of this person taking their life in such a way that I knew had happened because I was in close proximity. That's how bad it is when it's not even noteworthy. That's troubling. It's very troubling. And, like you said, people are being murdered. People are being murdered in horrific ways. I know early on in the shutdown, pandemic, COVID era, whatever we're calling it, not too far from me, a woman was found in a tote.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? But it is very dangerous right now. And not just the dangerous element, but just managing your triggers and traumas. When quarantine started, me personally, I'm an introvert. I love being alone. Okay. That's my jam. However, I recognize the fact that being alone that much was just as detrimental as being overstimulated and overexposed. Because the more alone I was, the more comfortable I became, and the harder it became to not be alone. So I was actually dancing around, okay, if I stay inside too long, I'm not going to leave again. That's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And so just thankfully, I'm self-aware. I have mental illnesses. They are undiagnosed, but I know they're there. I also manage my triggers very well until I don't.
Mm-hmm.
But I recognize that as well. And I think sometimes we just don't want to acknowledge, the faults in our stars. It's okay to not be okay.
Yeah.
And if we start to normalize that from a young age, then maybe we can, get a better handle on this. Because I just think of all the times that we tell, especially young boys, that they can't feel, they can't display emotion. We tell young girls to keep going. Like you said, your grandmother said, we don't nobody got time for that, because we got to be strong and we got to carry. And we've been taught that, we've been indoctrinated from a young age. And if we can just start to normalize that it is okay to not be okay.
Yeah.
And just to do whatever you can to not stay there.
Mm-hmm.
Don't stay in whatever that state of being is. Whatever it takes, if it takes a friend, if it takes a therapist, if it takes an outing, if it takes a day in, if it takes medication, if it takes a hobby, whatever it is, don't stay there.
Right.
So
To remind myself a couple of years ago to not repeat the mistakes of my grandmother, so to speak, right? My oldest daughter had become so high strung. And one of my triggers is like crying, like that, you know how kids scream, that piercing, it triggers me every time. I nearly lose it. So I had to backtrack and I would say, okay, Ashley, I'm going to give you 6 minutes to have your meltdown. I'm going to start this timer. At the end of your 6 minutes, I need you to gather yourself. I need you to dry your eyes. I need you to take a deep breath and then come back and talk to mommy. I start the timer, close the door, and walk away. Because who are we to tell these little people that they cannot have their emotions? She quickly grew out of it. I don't know what was going on. I was in the middle of a separation that might have been a trigger for her. She doesn't melt down anymore. She has resorted to counting. When she has had it, she starts at 10 and she counts herself down. She takes a deep breath and she'll either tell you off or she's like, I'm not doing this, and back off. But she is very poised and in control of that now. And we have to be conscious of that with our children, because I almost repeated the same mistake and not let this child have her moment.
Right. That's
so what
good.
you're actually talking about, sister, is simply coping skills. Are we giving our young people and our adults
right
coping skills? Right?
Absolutely.
Because I've seen, again, going into this correctional environment, because other than that, I would never, be consistently in this group of dysfunction. I'll be
Right.
honest. That's
Right.
where a lot of my experiences with dysfunction comes from. You could tell someone no, a legitimate no, a no that's beyond your control, and that no would like simply stop their whole, like break down their whole body, stop their whole day. They couldn't recover from a no over just the smallest little thing, something that didn't even matter for real in the grand scheme of life. And it's like, so then they would have, and it's like, okay, but you don't have any coping skills. Why is it that if somebody steps on your shoes in a club, you have to kill them? Why is that? You have no coping skills. You have no, ability to counteract and balance against the things that you're experiencing. Why? And also, I've experienced this as an adult. I have coping skills.
But they
I know
bad.
what coping skills are. Things like counting and deep breathing, taking some space, taking some stuff. Those all fall in the realm of coping skills. Giving people space to use their coping skills. If I need a minute, let me have a minute. There's nothing wrong with that. Just
Right.
let me breathe. I'll be back in a moment.
Right.
Yeah. Because people don't always respect you needing a minute. They still want to push. And you deal with it. I'm talking to you. We're not going to be talking if you keep pushing at me. I'm going to physically aggress. Please leave me alone. Like, we have to allow people their moment, because it's dangerous. Then everybody be talking about, oh, she crazy. She shot up the job. Didn't I tell you to leave me alone 5 minutes ago?
Right.
That.
And I mean, you gotta respect a person that does have some type of positive coping skills, because some people do have coping skills, but they're not positive.
Exactly.
Some people do cope, have ways that they cope, but it ain't nothing good. That's where addiction comes into play. Addiction is a coping skill.
Yes, it is.
A negative coping skill. That's where you have overeating,
drugs, alcohol, overeating, sex.
Right. Oh man. Like, I just feel it would be so beneficial if there was some place that had immediate access. Now we're gonna make some resources available in the comments and on our other platforms for people who are in a state where they just need some help. But um if we've missed any, if anybody knows of some, I really want to find an immediate resource, because I know that particularly if you're using insurance, or Lord forbid you don't have insurance,
Mhm.
trying to get a mental health professional is not an immediate thing. It is
Nope.
a process, and it can be 6 months just to intake. It could be, there just has to be something a little bit more immediate and also long term. So not just the
Mhm.
crisis, not just I'm having suicidal thoughts, not just I put my hands on someone because this, but you did that and that was last week. How are we doing this week?
Right.
Mhm.
How are we coping?
Exactly. Exactly.
Um, so if anybody knows, like, please enlighten me. I definitely want to make sure that I make it available to everyone that I can, like, shout it from the rooftops. But we have all in this time expressed our experiences personally with mental illness and mental health, and we're all open to therapeutic intervention and things like that. So sadly, unfortunately, we're a little ahead of where a lot of people are. So I'm looking for people to really start to have this conversation amongst yourselves, like really start
That's it.
to deal with some of this mental illness. Because if you look for it, I promise you, you don't have to look far.
Nope.
It might be as close as the mirror, but even if it's not, you're not going to have to look far. There's someone, statistically, there someone who's
Yeah,
dealing
then they
with.
say it's like 1 in 3 children. Like it's like 1 in 3 children are suffering from some sort of depression, anxiety disorder.
And I feel like any statistic they have is low.
Absolutely. Because I think, here I go. I think that a lot of these children that are diagnosed with ADHD and ADD are actually suffering from some sort of depression and trauma, and not that that's what it is. But it is so easy to slap that diagnosis on these children and just sedate them than to deal with the underlying issue.
Yep.
Mhm. I agree. I
Yeah.
definitely agree with that. I definitely agree with that. And then, it goes, it seems like mental illness is a surface topic, but it's so meaty. There's so many things in it,
Mhm.
because the train of thought where my mind went was there's also the trust factor. How can these children express themselves when a lot of times there's no one they can trust
Right,
to express
exactly.
themselves to? It's such a multi-layered type of thing, with for all the reasons we already touched on, and some that we didn't even scratch or bring into the conversation.
Yeah.
But I think that there's hope. There's hope. I see it getting a lot more attention. I saw a article this week that one of the school districts was extending Thanksgiving break because people needed a mental health break.
Mm.
And it wasn't news to me that they extended the break. I have children. Of course, I know when your break is, but the fact that they acknowledged that everyone is burnt out and they just need a break.
Mm.
Yeah, when I read that, I so appreciated that, because people also have not taken into account that in isolation, us re-entering into the world has caused trauma as well.
Yes.
Um, I worked from home before the pandemic. And then I foolishly went back into the office in April. From April to July, and I almost died. I almost killed a coworker, and I almost died. I was triggered every day. I could not believe how much people talking bothered me.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe that, like, people talking bothered me. Stephanie, don't laugh. I was like, and then I felt bad because I had this one coworker. She was just bright and bubbly, and I am obnoxiously cheerful in the morning. And by like an hour into work, I'd be like, if she don't shut up, I'm gonna stab her with this leather opener. Every day I was just like, stop talking to me. So yeah, there was trauma even re-entering the world. We need a break. We are not okay. We are not okay. And it's okay, y'all. We are not okay.
Right. Say it with me. It is okay to not be okay.
Mm-hmm. It's not, it is. It's okay now.